Lisa said, Mabu businesses. All glories to Shrila Prabhupada. I'm very happy to see you, to meet you.
Big hugs and kisses to you.
Although you are, I say, materially distanced, you know, you are spiritually present.
Yes.
Prabhu?
Yes.
I hope and pray, Lord Krishna, to bless you for the best of your health.
Thank you. Thank you. And you as well. And you as well. So that we can continue meeting and discussing and chasing away the shadows of the past and looking to the bright light of the future.
So would it be nice to talk about something real, something, you know, giving hope to people by our means? I mean, Acharya's teachings, our experiences also, because our experience is, I mean, is the mean through which our message can get our public.
Yeah.
I would say that culture is the base, because, you know, if you change culture, you can do everything with people. But how we have to resist to this destruction of traditional values? That's my point. We must be ready, you know, to give effective answer. Even if our purpose is a spiritual purposes, but this spiritual purpose must operate on the nowadays society, not just abstractly, but, you know, effectively, coming from the potentiality to the effect. So we have to understand what's culture.
Now you've said it. How do we define culture? Whose culture? At which time in history? Because cultures evolve, events evolve, ideas evolve, people evolve.
Exactly. So we have to be careful, to be attentive how people is changing or evolving, because maybe it is not evolving, but involving.
Yeah, devolving.
People think to be in the way of progress, but maybe it is in the way of regress.
Yes.
So this must be the arguments, the exchange. Let's say we are just now in a Upanishadic milieu. Milieu means in the atmosphere of Upanishad. Yeah. So we can discuss very calmly, like a Socratic dialogue, you know,
yes. Yeah.
No, without any prejudice.
I want to stay with this idea, Matsya Avatar Prabhu. I want to stay with this idea for a moment, because here in America, elsewhere in the world as well, the country, the culture has lost the ability to discuss in a civilized way. I grew up in New York. You know, I'm 73 years old. So the jokes are getting worse by the day. But I grew up here. I grew up in New York City. I remember a time, my friends when I was a boy, Republicans, Democrats, conservative, ultra conservative, right wing, ultra left wing, socialists, communists, all in the same neighborhood. We were friends. The children went to school together. The parents had community service together. We would go to the park and play together. We would have meals together, picnics together. And if there was a difference of opinion, we could discuss it like civilized human beings. I don't know, Matsya Avatar Prabhu, what has happened. People cannot discuss in a civilized way. And I don't know why. It's very sad. It's tragic. Maybe you have some insight.
I appreciate very much your analysis. Actually, I came first time in New York on 73. And I set up my first business society, business agreement. So it was different from Italy, but not so much. People were still dreaming, were still hoping, were still trying to understand, to do something nice together. So I agree 100% with you, what you just exposed. But it is not just America or New York, which is the most known symbol of America. But all over America is the same.
Everywhere.
And unfortunately, also Italy is down in the same cul-de-sac.
Yeah, cul-de-sac. Yeah.
The French people call it a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
So I think that there is not two different places now, but they are all under the same vision, the same dictate. There is, it looks like, being a system which is going in such a direction that the same value, at least for the West, has the same value, the same standard, more or less. So what's politically correct is the same.
Yeah. Okay. But, very good. Very good.
But but the different people still have their own culture. So a lot of suffering is getting out because people suffer because is going to lose their identity. First one, the cultural identity. So even philosophy, or let's say culture, can't be in good health if people relationship are anything to exchange, giving each other. If everyone has the same culture, the enthusiasm for cultivating culture
goes down.
It goes down because the varieties of cultures are making us enlivened or
yes,
just exchange.
Yeah. So, we've lost that enlivened quality. We've lost the enthusiasm for life.
Yeah, Prabhupada said that variety in unity, unity in variety, but unity in unity doesn't work. Right. Because it is just, make everything flat.
Yeah, yeah. There has to be two for there to be an exchange of love, affection. Matsya Avatar Prabhu, what you put me in mind, you remind me that there was a time when we were closer to the natural world. we spent more time in nature, more time with trees and flowers, more time outside. And something has happened. We've become, especially recently, you know, the development of Chat GPT and different kinds of very sophisticated electronic technology
Exactly.
has depersonalized our relationships with ourselves and with the natural world. Here where I live, I remember very fondly your home in Italy. It's such a beautiful place, and there you've cultivated trees and flowers and gardens. And I remember what a pleasure, what a joy it was just to be with you walking around. Here also I have a small place in New York on Long Island. And but my wife and I, we plant trees and flowers, and we have a vegetable garden. We have tomatoes and zucchinis and string beans and some other things. It's a miracle. You put seeds in the ground, a little water, and nature just gives and gives and gives and gives. And there's something, I can only use the word spiritual about it. To put your hands in the soil, to feel nature, to be close to nature. I think when we turned our back on nature, going back to the Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution, I mean, we can talk about the history, how these things came about. When it was about acquisition, you know, nature not as a relationship to be respected and admired, but nature as this unlimited resource for me, something for me to possess, for me to own. Something happened in the history of humanity that we have to get it back to where it was somehow. What do you think?
That's actually the anthropological crisis I mentioned in my topics. Anthropological, not just cultural, anthropological, because everything has changed in the last 50 years, you know, everything has changed. So we are just going deep down by desecration of the life.
Yeah.
So people are not anymore conceiving to bow down to Mata Bhumi, bow down to the river, to the small animals who are living, you know, with us. So everything is became desecrated. This desecration is bringing us in the catastrophe. I would like to explain a little bit, starting from my first darshan of Srila Prabhupada.
Please.
76 August, 30 August. He told me, you see, people is exploiting Mother Nature. People, the humans, are exploiting, very cruelly exploiting.
Yes.
They are plundering the material nature.
Yeah.
Prabhupada told me, people will suffer so much because there will be a reaction. That was 76. Let's say 47 years ago. I was, I would say, watching him. I mean, I was just very attentively listening to him. Prabhupada asked me, do you believe in God? I didn't answer. Prabhupada told me, so people will go to suffer so much.
Mhm.
We can get relief just by the mercy of God.
Mhm.
So starting from this point, people are plundering the earth, the mother nature is plundering everything, the birds in the sky, reptiles, they are exploiting everything, any kind of element of the Prakriti. So I think that the solution of these big, great problems is to get back to God in a new way. I mean, different from, I say, a little bit different. I mean, superficially different from the time of His Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhanta, Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. This going back could be different because the culture is different.
Yes.
The force, the power is different. Many things are different.
Yeah.
So now we have to take this great occasion on our shoulder, on our own, and try to go back, but in a way which can dialogue with those who are going against.
Mhm.
So
Mm.
we can't think, using the same language, the same weapons, the same, nothing, because everything is now, this time, is already in the other hand, on the enemy's hand. I haven't any enemy. I haven't any enemy. But people are behaving like enemies.
One of the
So
things that I've always appreciated about you, Matsya Avatar Prabhu, from the first time I met you, which, oh my gosh, 45 years ago, more, so long ago that you and I first met. From the very beginning, I admired how you were able to create a new vocabulary, a new lexicon of terminology, new words, new phrases that were transposing this ancient millennial wisdom into a vernacular, into a tongue, into a language for today. This was brilliant. Forgive me, I don't usually use the word brilliant very often, but I found that what you were doing there, introducing concepts of psychology, concepts of history, of archaeology, of anthropology, of art, uh, showing parallels with the Renaissance, Dante and the Bhagavad Gita. I mean, this is fantastic. The ability to see the application of millennial teachings, something ancient and wise and universal and true, in a way of speaking that can touch people's hearts today. I think that's our job. Our job is not just to memorize the verses from Bhagavad Gita and to impress people with how much Sanskrit we have. I think the job is to think carefully from whatever our particular position. Someone is a professor of history, someone else is in technology, somebody is a chef and can cook a beautiful meal. Someone is an architect, somebody's a writer, a poet, a singer, ice skater. Everyone has their particular God-given gifts and skills. To be able to find within that within those gifts that we have uniquely, the contribution we can make in this new language, in this new vocabulary, I think that's critically important. And I've always appreciated how you've been able to do this. So thank you for your example of how to transpose something ancient into something new. Very
Can I
important.
give you just a glimpse, just, you know, I would say, inspired by what you are saying? I would like to give you just an example, very short example. The Romans, when conquered the Greek people, you know, the decadent empire of Athena, 300 years before Christ, they conquered the Greek. But because the Romans had something like 80,000, 89,000 words in their vocabulary, Greek has been conquered. But because they had 80,000 words in their vocabulary, Roman Empire got in power over the Greek. But the Greek people, many of them, became the leader of the Romans.
Mm.
I would like to say that Romans were very strong. They had an invincible, I would say, army. But on the cultural plan, they became inferior.
Mm.
And Greek became masters of the Romans. So I think we should be like the Greeks to keep our culture, especially Krishna's culture. Prabhupada gave us, you know, a lot of category to
Yes.
discuss and bring up all the most important points. Because these people who appear as a winner, they are in their maximum failure. Themselves are in the failure because they are identified with the external dynamics. They think to be the winner, but they are the loser. We have not to be convinced that we have no strength, we have not hope, we have not this and that, because it is not like that. The reality, the truth, satyam, ritam, tattvam is not like that, you know. According to these three parameters, we are winner. We are the real winner.
Yeah.
You know, so because we don't want to win in a military way, we don't want to win in an artificial way.
Mm.
We have not to go, how say, towards the others as a fighter.
Yeah,
We
not
must
aggressive.
go. We
Yes.
must go with full a plenum of cadeau, I would say, gifts.
Yes.
We have to present ourselves that we want to give gifts. We have something nice to share. So we have to approach people not with the spirit, the fighting spirit. Otherwise, we are going to lose because they are fighting with their
They
vocabulary,
have a superior weaponry.
with
They
their
have much
culture,
more. Yes.
with their money.
You know, Matsya Avatar, this is why I love spending time with you. You have the brain of a scholar and the heart of a poet. And when we speak about these very complex issues, you were able to summarize very easily that the greatest force in the universe is love. And it's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he raised his hands. No weapons. No weapons.
Exactly, exactly.
And but this is difficult, isn't it? I mean, I will admit to you something. It's very hard for me to say it, but I can say it to you. I don't have that kind of unlimited compassion. I don't have that kind of radical acceptance of everyone. I look at some people, particularly, my field is Holocaust studies. So I'm constantly exposed to issues of war crimes, genocide, crimes against humanity, things that human beings should not even have to look at it. It's so harsh. It's so cruel. And honestly, I don't want to forgive these people. I don't want to embrace these people. I don't. I want to see them punished and stopped. So sometimes I struggle with this, and I'm curious to know what your advice. If you were my doctor, how would you advise me to reconcile these two parts of the theology? On the one hand, ultimate compassion for all creatures. On the other hand, there must be rule of law. There must be some cosmic dharma, some organizing principle to the creation, without which it's chaos. So I don't know how you do it. I struggle with this. I do.
Let me try, to give you just my experiences. Then you can take your reasoning on that. In the Mahabharata, in the Bhagavata Purana, in the Smriti, let's say in the Smriti, but also in the Shruti, there are a category of people which is called Asura. Asura, there are two kinds of Asura. One kind are no Manusha. They are not Manusha. They are Asura. Asura are not Manusha. Manusha is humans. Asura is not human. First thing. Asura, they have their own psychology. It is not ours. It is not ours. Asura psychology is Asura psychology. Human psychology is human psychology. Asura are so powerful as much the Devas. Devas and Asuras, they are on the same plane. They are strong, both strong. And many times, Devas have been defeated by Asuras. When Asura are defeated, when Devas get the help of Lord Vishnu. When they take a shelter, when they go and ask for help to Lord Vishnu, Asuras can be defeated. We can't defeat Asuras. They are behind our range. Not possible to defeat Asuras. We must do like Devas do, just asking the help of Lord Vishnu. Let's say in this planet, Mahabharata, Adiparva, there is a chapter. The chapter's name is Asuras Invade the Earth, this planet. Never has been told or written that sometime he got away. So they are still here. According to Shastra, they are still here. we are not confronting with we are not dealing with the asuras. We are dealing with some asura. The first A is long, asura. Asura are those people, dushkritinam, they are also called. Dushkritinam, they are asuric people, not asura. Asura, they are very much tied with the devas, same father, Kashyapa Muni, and different mother. They are cousin. Asura and devas, they are cousin. They have the same strength. So we have not to confront with them with the same level because we are loser. But we have something very, very, very precious. The preciousness is that we can be in contact with Lord Vishnu in the heart, Lord Krishna in the heart. We can become really strong, really convincing, attracting them, because it is a God's quality, this one, Bhagavan's quality, this attractiveness, you know, and they can be attracted. But just remember the episode of Bali Maharaj and Vamanadeva. So we can attract. My experience is that people who thought not to be interested in spiritual topics, they become interested. They are making questions. They are trying to understand what makes me different than him. So we can pass a lot of spiritual, I'll say, insight. We must not be attached to results. We must not be attached to the work, I say, to the benefit.
Yeah.
But if we are doing our swadharma, no, you mentioned it before, dharma, no? Swadharma. Dharma is not in my power. That's Deva's power and Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu's power. Rig Veda, Tantric Mandala, Om Ta Vishnu, Om Paramam Padam Sadam. No, we are not that strength, that achievement. But we can take with us Krishna in the heart and just become the rays of Krishna, Krishna's rays, like the sunbeam, something like. We are just, tell them how it is our view of the world, of the life, of the sufferings, of the relationship, of economy, history, and so on. And many times people become attracted. I can't change the world. I can't even think to change the world. But I can do my best in my swadharma, in the, I'll say, in contact, tied to yukta, bhukti yukto, jatya, ube sukriti duskriti. I mean, we must be in our own footprint, you know. Letting Krishna do his work, his job. It is not changing the world is not our job, my job, you know.
Here's what I'm taking away from what you're saying, and it's very insightful on your part.
Can I add just a few words?
Yes, please.
Just
please.
completing the word.
Yeah.
The very important point, my experience, the last 80 days ago, I held a large program in Rome, 200 people. I've been invited, and I brought this theme. Kali Yuga, non-solution catastrophe, or great spiritual reset. Kali Yuga is just a catastrophe, unavoidable catastrophe, or could be very large spiritual reset.
Yes.
So that was my topic in Rome. I I I gave them the chance to think on their own. I am just giving my view, and they could take the job, I would say the duty, the responsibilities to think about. Everything is up on you, upon you. I'm young, so we can't go there doing the ascetics. I can't go, I would say, present him as an ascetic. I thought about the world. I thought about psychology. I thought I I spoke about the history, about Greek philosophy, Roman philosophy, uh, German philosophy. I mentioned, the Russian Tolstoy, and Dostoevsky, the demons, demoniac, or Brother Karamazov, and Nietzsche. Nietzsche, the opposite, God is dead. So, what does it mean? In our reading in Vedic literatures, I explained that. Someone is going, to follow, different model, different reasonings, I would say, philosophy, but they could see how much poor was the praxis. High theory, high philosophy, but very bad and very poor and disastrous praxis. So we discussed 4 hours, 5 hours on praxis, not just abstract philosophy, not dogmas, not already apodictic sentence. No. Everyone had the chance to raise his hand, and talk.
We're learning also that the effects of depression can be passed down genetically over the generations. Technically, I think it's called epigenetics. That and in my field, when you speak with Holocaust survivors, I remember one young woman who was the granddaughter, not even the child, but the grandchild of a Holocaust survivor. And she didn't understand why it was that whenever she would hear a dog barking, she would go and hide. Then in therapy, in psychiatric sessions, it came to the surface that her grandmother had been attacked by German shepherds when she was growing up in Nazi-occupied Europe. And so the sound of that barking had imprinted itself on the genetic code that actually affected the arrangement of the molecules in the DNA helix. And so she has become sensitive to that sound, even though the experience was her grandmother's experience. So, you raised some really critical points here that there's two things. One is what you're making the distinction between asura and asura. That there is a category of people, you can't, whatever you do, you won't be able to affect them. They're on this kind of a genetic level with demigods. And that we may not be able to influence. But people who are the victims of Kali Yuga, who are the victims of trauma from early in life, from their parents, grandparents' experiences, whatever it may be, if someone extends to them a hand of compassion, of love. It can work miracles. That's a fascinating distinction. I'd never thought of it in that way before, to create these different categories. That's very helpful. So thank you for that.
The asura can be approached easily, can come on our understanding because still they are human.
Yes. Right.
And because humanity has his own genetic imprinting.
Yeah.
But yes, because they are very well paid, very deeply corrupted, it is a long work. We must be very calmness, calm. Right. Calm, serene, I would say serene, shanti. Shanti, we must be not dressed as a shanti man, but behaving with shanti, with
more organic.
Yeah, exactly. All together, all the pieces, bio, psycho, spiritual asset, all together,
Very good.
Yeah, harmony. The harmonist of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati, the harmonist, remember?
Yes,
the harmonist. Harmonist. So we must incorporate in ourselves this. I think there is not alternative. According my experience, according my knowledge, according my experience, there is no alternative. We must be really, it is a way to show our strength, the real strength. Understand? The real strength. If we, I would say, want to show the false strength, they are much stronger than us. Plato, or even better, Aristotle, said man is intelligent. I am a man. I have not to say I'm intelligent. So we are weak. We are, I would say, overloaded by karmic, ancestral karmic debts. So we can take this occasion to do our best, without losing the hope.
Yes.
Let's say that there is not any Vijaya, victory promised. No. Krishna told Arjuna, Arjuna, you have to fight without thinking about defeat or victory. You have just to fight. Let's do that. For me, you are already victorious, but you have not to fight in order to become victorious. So it is for that I can't belong to any political party, because I don't want to win. I want just to fight.
That's a very, very difficult thing.
Fighting in my way, in a Brahmanical way, not in a Kshatriya way. I'm not a Kshatriya, so I'm not I would say, easy with the Kshatriya job. I can do when the need, but I'm not in my best. In my best is just to dialogue with people, to dialogue, to take, just discuss about. So you are telling your things, you explain your point of view. Humbly, I may, if you like, to explain my perspective of life, of death. People don't want to talk about that, but I want to talk about that. And then I mean, you are free.
Yeah.
You can do what you like. You know, I mean, no, I don't. I didn't tell you what to do. I don't want to tell you what to do. I am telling you what I'm doing.
I think that's the true spiritual master, the true guru, teacher, doesn't dictate, do this, do that. Sets an example, gives opportunities for the disciples and the students to grow in their own unique way. What you're talking about is a very difficult thing to achieve. You know, we grow up in a culture that rewards success, that rewards winning, you know, at any cost, at any cost. Doesn't matter what you have to do, just win. That's what counts. And to be able to go against that, to live your life in a way that is not about, you know, material victories, material winning, is a very, very, very difficult thing. You're swimming against the currents. You know, you're going against the west of. There's a lovely poem by E. Cummings, one of my favorite poets. He says, to be yourself in a world that is doing its best to make you like everybody else day and night is to fight the hardest battle any human being can fight and never stop fighting. The whole culture around us is insisting, no, go this way, you know, be for you, you know, achieve everything for yourself. And, you know, the wisdom culture's diametrically the opposite. You know, they're saying, how can I serve? What can I do for you? I remember Prabhupada giving the example from I think it's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, of the tree, the fruit tree, the tree that has no fruit, that stands very tall, very proud. The tree that is full of ripe fruits, it bows very low. So someone who is full with the fruits of knowledge, of wisdom, of character, of insights, of realization, of love, they take a humble place. But this culture doesn't tell us that. This culture is the opposite. If you take a humble place, then people will take advantage of you. They will defeat you. They'll take over your business. You know, you're going to lose. You know, losing is the worst thing. You know, it was wonderful. Those of us, Matsya Avatar Prabhu, who had the great privilege, the great, great privilege of knowing Prabhupada, of spending time with Srila Prabhupada, we saw what it was like to live that life. We saw someone who was a lover of God, whose whole way of being was a challenge to the materialistic culture. Every fiber of his being was a defeat to the culture of acquisition and exploitation that surrounds us. I remember one time we were taking a walk in London, and, you know, Prabhupada brushed his teeth with twigs. If he could get neem twigs from India, he preferred that. But sometimes even a willow tree wig. So we were in Hyde Park, London, and there's some willow trees there. So we asked his secretary, can you take some twigs? So he went over. It was Nandu Kumar, and he broke off one twig. Then he went and he broke off a second twig, and he was reaching up to take a third twig. And Prabhupada said, no, 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 no. Don't disturb the tree more than necessary. He's thinking, I don't want to disturb a tree. Who thinks like that? We're
Beautiful,
surrounded by exploiting nature. By
beautiful and completely coherent.
yes, elegant,
Coherent with
natural.
the philosophy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He lived it, lived the philosophy.
So that's why we must be proud, spiritually proud,
Yes.
in telling people how good it is to bow down to the ground, I mean, Mother Earth and Mata Bhumi, how much we can appreciate, all the creatures. And so this is very interesting because people, especially cultured people, they understand the links through links. So there is one book written by Carl Gustav Jung in the first years of the 50s, 1951, I think. And he wrote in this book, I have all the work of Carl Gustav Jung, all all these works.
Mm.
He said that the first and the second World War was due because people had lost the relationship with nature.
Mm.
Before he wrote, before the wood, the forest had its own animus. The river had its own animus. And the land, this land, that land, another land, they had different kind of deities, no? Is written, he wrote like that. So when people lose, disconnect from nature, and
Yeah.
the deities uh, uh, inhabiting
Yes. Yes.
nature,
Yeah.
they lose, they become cruels. They have no any confined boundary, and they destroy and destroy them themselves.
It's fascinating to me, Matsya Avatar, that you quote Plato, Aristotle, Jung. You have this wonderful range of cultural references, and I share your fascination with that. There's so much to learn from the history of philosophers, the history of poetry, the history of the great thinkers, the therapists, and the psychologists. And I don't know exactly. Are you familiar with this?
Read the book.
Yeah.
Read the book. I know.
It's
I know it.
fascinating, absolutely fascinating how Jung was in touch with this animus that you're talking about. There's one quote from Jung that is like a song from my life. He said, what if the most fallen of souls, the most needy of beings, the one who is the most criminal and most in need of our compassion and help, what if it's me? What if that is in me? What do I do? And that helps me to remember that grounding, that to take not the highest position, but the lowest position, that we are the ones who are most in need of that understanding and wisdom. And I just want to thank you. I so much enjoy our time because you remind me of these most important lessons in not just spiritual life, but in life, all life. And I hope there will be other opportunities for us to come together like this and to continue our discussions together. Would that be possible? Can we come back together?
Sure. I would like to ask you, what do you think about we discuss like that in different topics, and then we can invite people who likes to follow our talking. Very simply, very, very simple. So we say, the two of us, yourself and myself, we are going to talk on some topic. If someone like to participate. A dialogue between East and West, l'Occidente e l'Oriente, a dialogo, un dialogo tra Oriente e Occidente. The best achievements of the East, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavata Purana, Upanishad, and so on, and the best achievements of the West, because also West has got a lot of achievement. Even saintly people in the time of Pico della Mirandola, of Poliziano, Lorenzo il Magnifico, actually, you know, they were talking about Neoplatonism, the Neoplatonic culture, no? Philosophy, Plotino, Porfirio, those people, you know, they were really talking about, so same in Dante, the same Michelangelo, the same Leonardo, they were all above, you know, they were not working with the marble block. They were working with the beauty, the essence of beauty, taking off what was useful in that marble block, taking off. So the problem is the beauty. Now the fashion is ugly, ugliness. Even the children toys, they are very horrible. They are very ugly.
Violent.
Exactly, you know.
You know,
So,
maybe our next conversation, Matsya Avatar Prabhu, can be about the concept of beauty. I would love to discuss
aesthetic philosophy. Aesthetic philosophy.
Yes, I would welcome this. I would so much welcome this to discuss with you. Otherwise, I don't have anyone else to talk to about it. There's only you.
I am your servant, Yogesvara Prabhu. I am happy if I can give you something, if I can give you some gift, some present, some good thoughts. And I'm just doing what it is my nature. This is my nature. This is my my way of life. You know.
So to be continued, and I hope very, very soon. Wonderful. Thank you so much for your association, for your friendship, for your love, and I'm so happy that we're friends.
I'm very happy to be your friend.
Thank you, Matsya Avatar Prabhu. Stay well, and we'll speak again very soon.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Best to you. Krishna Stu Bhagavan Swayam. Haribol.
Haribol.